Prince Harry might be closer to a deal with the royal family than at any point in recent years. But not for the reason most people expect. This isn't about titles, public appearances, or even money. It's about security, silence, and a decision that could quietly change everything behind palace doors. According to multiple reports, a long-running review of Harry's UK protection has reached its final stage, and what comes next may determine whether reconciliation with King Charles moves forward or remains frozen. Because this time, the conditions aren't emotional. They're procedural, strategic, and reportedly non-negotiable. The moment everything shifted publicly, Prince Harry's relationship with the royal family has appeared stalled for years. Private meetings didn't happen. Public gestures were rare, and every major development seemed to circle back to the same unresolved issue: safety. When Harry stepped back from royal duties in 2020, his security status changed. That shift triggered a legal battle, a public court case, and years of debate over whether the Duke of Sussex should receive taxpayer-funded police protection when visiting the UK. In May last year, Harry lost his legal challenge against the Home Office decision that downgraded his security. At the time, the ruling appeared final. But quietly, a new process began. According to publicly reported information, a fresh security assessment was carried out by the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, known as RAVEC. This committee is responsible for deciding protection levels for senior royals and public figures, based on threat analysis provided by intelligence and security professionals. And sources now claim that this review has reached its conclusion. The key detail? A ruling is expected within weeks, and insiders suggest the outcome may already be settled. Why security matters more than it sounds. At first glance, this might seem like a technical issue, a bureaucratic review, a routine reassessment. But for Prince Harry, security has always represented something larger. He has consistently argued that without guaranteed protection, it is unsafe to bring his wife and children to the UK. That concern has been central to his public statements, legal filings, and interviews. According to his position, the issue isn't privilege, it's predictability. Without knowing what level of protection will be provided, family visits become logistically and emotionally complicated. And that's where the stakes quietly rise. Because if security is reinstated, or significantly increased, one major barrier disappears. Not just for visits, but for conversations that have reportedly been paused until conditions change. The palace's reported position. Palace sources speaking to several outlets have suggested a consistent theme. Reconciliation is possible, but only under strict boundaries. According to those reports, senior royals are prepared to accept Harry back into the fold if he agrees to remain silent about private family matters going forward. No interviews, no books, no public commentary on internal dynamics. One insider reportedly described this as the single issue that could make or break any meaningful rapprochement. It's important to note that these claims are attributed to unnamed sources and have not been officially confirmed by Buckingham Palace. But the same condition has appeared repeatedly across multiple reports, suggesting it reflects a broader institutional stance rather than a single opinion. In other words, this wouldn't be a symbolic reunion, it would be a conditional one. What makes this moment different? This isn't the first time reconciliation has been discussed, but it may be the first time where process, not emotion, is driving the timeline. The security review operates independently of personal relationships. Government sources have emphasized that threat analysis and mitigation decisions are made by security professionals, not by the palace itself. While senior royals sit on RAVEC, insiders stress that they do not control intelligence assessments or final recommendations. That distinction matters, because it allows both sides to maintain distance. If security is approved, it isn't a personal favor. If it's denied, it isn't officially a family decision. And that separation may be exactly what makes progress possible. Confidence behind the scenes. According to reports from GB News and other UK outlets, Prince Harry is said to be confident of a positive outcome from the review. Sources familiar with the process claim the palace would have no power to override whatever decision RAVEC reaches. That point has been echoed by former royal aides, who describe claims of palace interference as inaccurate. One former staffer reportedly explained that while palace representatives are present on the committee, they do not advise on threat levels or protective measures. Those judgments come from intelligence and security experts alone. At the same time, government sources have cautioned that no final confirmation has yet been issued, emphasizing that reviews of this kind remain confidential until formally concluded. Still, the tone surrounding the process has noticeably shifted. Words like positive, optimistic, and nearing resolution now appear, where uncertainty once dominated. Why timing suddenly matters? This review isn't happening in isolation. Prince Harry is expected to return to the UK this summer for the Invictus Games, an event closely tied to his public identity and charitable work. What was once expected to be a straightforward sporting appearance has reportedly become something more sensitive. According to multiple outlets, Harry has expressed a wish for King Charles to play a visible role in the Games, potentially even opening the event. If that were to happen, it would mark the first major public appearance involving father and son together in years. But that idea has reportedly created tension within royal circles. Some sources suggest senior figures were caught off guard by the proposal, particularly given ongoing strains between Harry and Prince William. Others claim the king may still be considering the invitation as part of a broader effort to ease family divisions. Once again, no official confirmation has been issued, but the very fact that these discussions are happening now, alongside the security review, has drawn attention, because both threads lead to the same question: the unspoken condition behind closed doors. One expectation appears consistent across reports: discretion. According to insiders, any path forward depends on assurances that private family matters will remain private, not retroactively, but moving forward. From the palace's perspective, this isn't about punishment, it's about predictability. Trust, once strained publicly, becomes an operational concern, not just an emotional one. And that's why this moment feels different. Not because emotions have changed, but because boundaries may finally be defined. Prince Harry's planned return to the UK for the Invictus Games was initially framed as routine, a charitable event, a sporting competition, a continuation of a project he's long been associated with. But according to multiple reports, that visit has taken on a far wider meaning. Sources quoted by The Sun suggest Harry has expressed a clear wish: he wants King Charles to open the Games alongside him. If true, this would place the king and his younger son together in a highly visible, symbolic setting, something that hasn't happened in years. One insider described it as Harry's dream scenario, saying he believes it would benefit both the Games and his relationship with his father. Importantly, the framing here isn't confrontational. It's presented as a gesture of alignment, not reconciliation through words, but through presence. Behind the scenes, reactions appear mixed. According to the Daily Beast, friends and allies of both King Charles and Prince William were reportedly surprised by the idea. Some were said to be concerned that the proposal could place pressure on the king, or reopen tensions that have not yet been resolved privately. Sources familiar with Prince William's position reportedly described unease about the timing and optics of such a public moment. From that perspective, the concern isn't the Invictus Games themselves, it's what the appearance might be interpreted as endorsing. A public reunion, even a limited one, would be read as a signal, whether intended or not. And in royal dynamics, signals matter. There's also a practical issue. The opening ceremony for the Games reportedly clashes with Queen Camilla's 80th birthday, a date that would traditionally keep the king elsewhere. However, sources involved in planning have suggested alternatives are being explored. These reportedly include limited appearances, or carefully structured scheduling that could allow the king to participate without neglecting other commitments. None of this has been confirmed publicly. But the fact that planning committees are reportedly considering such scenarios suggests the idea hasn't been dismissed outright, and that alone marks a shift. Here's where the story loops back. Any appearance by the king would require clear, stable security arrangements, not just for Harry, but for everyone involved. That's why the timing of the RAVEC review is so significant. If Prince Harry's protection status is clarified, especially if it's increased, one of the largest logistical barriers to public appearances disappears. Without that certainty, even symbolic gestures become complicated. With it, options quietly reopen. This is why multiple sources describe the security decision as the gatekeeper moment. Not a peace treaty, not an apology, just a framework that allows movement. One of the most persistent claims surrounding this story is the idea that the palace could influence the outcome of Harry's security review. Former royal aides and government sources have strongly pushed back against that narrative. According to those familiar with the process, RAVEC decisions are based on threat assessments provided by intelligence agencies and security professionals. While palace representatives sit on the committee, they are not responsible for evaluating threats or recommending protective measures. As one former staffer reportedly explained to The Times, those judgments are made by experts, not by family members or advisors. Government insiders have echoed this, emphasizing that the review remains ongoing and confidential, with no final determination released yet. In other words, no one outside the process can say with certainty what the outcome will be, but the perception of independence matters almost as much as the result. According to reports from the Telegraph and Daily Mail, the general mood surrounding Harry's case has turned cautiously positive. Some sources have even suggested that security approval is now nailed on, though others caution that no formal confirmation has been issued. Harry himself has previously spoken openly about how central this issue is for him. In past interviews, he described feeling unable to safely bring his family to the UK without appropriate protection. He also suggested that institutional decisions, rather than personal disputes, shaped the current situation. Those comments were controversial at the time, but they now sit within a different context. Because if the review concludes in his favor, it reframes the entire debate. One of the most overlooked elements in this story is the reported expectation of discretion. Palace sources claim that before any meaningful rapprochement can occur, Harry would need to give firm assurances that he will not publicly discuss private family matters again. This isn't about controlling opinions. It's about preventing future escalation. From an institutional perspective, unpredictability is risk. And in this case, silence isn't being framed as submission, but as stability. If Harry agrees, reconciliation becomes manageable. If not, distance remains the default. That condition may sound stark, but it reflects how modern royal relationships operate, less emotionally, more structurally. Despite all the reporting, nothing has actually happened yet. No security ruling has been announced. No appearance has been confirmed. No reunion has taken place. But the convergence of events is impossible to ignore. A nearing security decision, a potential UK visit, a public event that could place father and son side by side. Each element on its own is manageable. Together, they form a crossroads. And that's why observers describe this moment as unusually delicate. For King Charles, this moment reportedly presents a careful balancing act. As monarch, his role is defined by restraint, neutrality, and long-term institutional stability. As a father, the situation is inevitably more personal, though rarely expressed publicly. According to sources close to the king and queen, any attempt to pressure or emotionally influence Charles is unlikely to succeed. Those close to him have described his approach as cautious, deliberate, and process-driven. This perspective helps explain reports that the king declined to meet Harry during previous UK visits, even when circumstances appeared favorable. Not as rejection, but as boundary setting. If reconciliation happens, it must happen on terms that don't destabilize the institution or appear reactive. That framework explains why security decisions, public appearances, and private conversations are being treated as separate tracks. While Prince William has not spoken publicly about these developments, multiple outlets suggest his position is more skeptical. Sources cited by the Daily Beast claim that friends and allies of the Prince of Wales were unsettled by reports of a potential Invictus appearance involving the king. From that viewpoint, the concern isn't reconciliation itself, but timing and optics. A public appearance, even a limited one, could be interpreted as closure before underlying issues are resolved. And within the royal family, symbolism carries weight beyond intention. Again, these are second-hand reports, attributed to unnamed sources. But they reflect a broader theme: caution about moving too quickly in public while private trust remains fragile. One element that quietly underpins much of this discussion is Harry's children. If security arrangements are clarified, it could open the possibility for Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet to spend time in the UK. That development would mark a significant change, not just logistically, but symbolically. It would also allow King Charles to see his grandchildren on British soil, something that has reportedly been limited in recent years. For some observers, this is the most compelling reason behind the renewed momentum. Not public events, not headlines, but family continuity. If RAVEC approves increased or restored protection, several doors open quietly. UK visits become predictable. Public appearances become logistically possible. Private meetings become easier to arrange. None of these guarantee reconciliation. But they remove friction. At that point, any decision not to engage would be clearly intentional, not procedural. And that clarity matters. If the review does not go in Harry's favor, the situation likely freezes again. Without security certainty, UK visits remain limited, public appearances remain unlikely, and reconciliation stays theoretical. That outcome would also reinforce existing tensions around control, independence, and institutional boundaries. Either way, the decision becomes defining, not because of what it grants, but because of what it clarifies. Although headlines often describe the situation as a deal, what's actually forming is far less formal. There are no contracts, no public announcements, no official confirmation from Buckingham Palace. What's emerging instead is an implicit framework, a set of conditions under which contact becomes workable again. For the palace, that framework is about stability, control, and minimizing future disruption. For Prince Harry, it's about clarity, predictability, and the ability to plan visits without uncertainty. In that sense, this isn't a reconciliation built on emotion. It's one built on risk management. According to multiple reports, the expectation that Harry remains silent about private family matters is often misunderstood. Sources suggest this isn't being framed internally as a penalty for past behavior. It's described instead as a forward-looking safeguard. From the palace's perspective, the issue isn't what has already been said, it's what might be said in the future. Once private conversations enter the public sphere, trust becomes operational rather than personal. And institutions tend to respond to operational risk with rules, not feelings. In this context, silence becomes less about submission and more about containment. If boundaries are respected, engagement becomes possible. If not, distance remains the default. Observers of King Charles have long noted his preference for gradualism over confrontation. Rather than dramatic gestures, his decisions are often incremental and procedural. That pattern appears consistent here. By allowing processes like the RAVEC review to unfold independently, the king avoids personalizing the outcome. Whatever the decision, it can be framed as institutional rather than emotional. That distance protects both sides. If security is approved, it doesn't look like favoritism. If it isn't, it doesn't look like punishment. Either way, responsibility is diffused, and that diffusion may be intentional. One of the quiet pressures shaping this situation is interpretation. Every visible interaction between senior royals is scrutinized for meaning. A handshake becomes a signal. A shared stage becomes a statement. That's why reports suggest hesitation around a joint appearance at the Invictus Games. Even if intended as a charitable gesture, it would likely be read as endorsement, forgiveness, or closure, regardless of the private reality. And once that interpretation takes hold, it can't be reversed. From an institutional standpoint, that makes timing everything. Another underreported aspect is the role of advisors. Senior royals rarely act alone. Sources suggest that aides on all sides are acutely aware of how quickly goodwill can be misinterpreted or overstated. That awareness likely explains why progress, if it comes, is expected to be quiet. No announcements. No declarations. Just small shifts in access, presence, and logistics. Despite the change in tone, nothing has actually been resolved. The security review has not been officially announced. No invitations have been confirmed. No private meetings have been acknowledged. What exists right now is possibility, not outcome. And in royal terms, possibility is both powerful and fragile. Move too quickly, and it collapses under scrutiny. Move too slowly, and it fades into irrelevance. That tension defines the current moment. Several commentators have noted that moments like this don't last. Public attention shifts. Priorities change. Events overtake intentions. If security arrangements are clarified and no further steps follow, the opportunity may quietly close again. If, however, small steps align, predictable visits, limited appearances, mutual restraint, a new equilibrium could emerge. Not dramatic, not emotional, but functional. This story isn't about a dramatic reunion, at least not yet. It's about process replacing emotion, conditions replacing gestures, and silence, rather than statements, becoming the currency of progress. A single security decision may soon answer several questions at once. How close Prince Harry really is to returning to the UK, what reconciliation would actually look like, and whether the royal family is prepared for a carefully managed reset or continued distance. What's clear is this: the next move won't come from a speech, an interview, or a headline. It will come from a decision made quietly and felt publicly. And if that decision goes one way, the next chapter won't be about whether reconciliation is possible, but about what it costs.